Alright, hi everybody, and welcome back to another pickups video. So it's only been a couple of weeks since my last one, but I did some more shopping and it just so happened that some of the packages I had coming in the mail showed up around the same time, so I thought, you know what? I will put another one together for you and show you some of the other cool stuff we've been picking up. I also have a new phone, and as a result I have a new camera, so hopefully the quality is a little bit better. Hopefully it sounds good, and hopefully the picture is good. I know in my previous video there's a little bit of issue with the focusing and things like that, so we will hope that this goes better, and you can let me know if it's working out and if things look good. So, got a decent stack of stuff to show you here. Again, a wide variety. We've got some imports, we've got some modern games, some older games, and then I've got more from that GameStop buy two, get two deal. So, why don't we start with the game I've been playing the most of, which is Ori and the Will of the Wisps. This is the sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest by Moon Studios. And this is actually still sealed because I wanted to own the physical copy of it, but I wasn't really aware until recently that this is on Game Pass. And so when this came in, I just downloaded the version on Game Pass since I subscribed to Game Pass, and I've been playing that version. A lot to say on this game. I'm tempted to do a separate review of it when I finish it up. I'm getting pretty close. But the short version is, if you're a fan of the first Ori and the Blind Forest, this is absolutely more of that, and it is a phenomenal game. The music is so good, the characters are excellent, the environments somehow look even better than the original Ori. It's just like artistically a triumph in basically every regard. The one thing that holds it down, unfortunately, is there's a lot of performance issues. Granted, I'm playing on an original Xbox. I don't have a One S, I don't have a One X, anything like that. I have a base model Xbox One, but there are frame rate drops all over the place, especially in sections with large enemies. And even worse than that, the thing that really is a bummer is sometimes it'll just hitch up, like it'll just completely freeze for anywhere from like 2 to 15 seconds, and just absolutely nothing's happening. It looks like your game froze, and then it'll eventually catch up and start playing again. And it doesn't always happen consistently. Sometimes it's when you're first entering into an area. Sometimes it's in the middle of an area. It seems worse in some areas than others. I can't really tell. And occasionally out of those hitches, the game has actually completely crashed and dropped me back to the Xbox main menu. So I hope that they can patch those issues out. I don't know if those exist on the PC version, so PC might be the way to play this in the meantime. But performance issues aside, gameplay-wise, this is a 100% excellent follow-up to the original Ori. And this was probably one of my most anticipated games this year, and it lived up to my expectations. I'm absolutely loving it, even though it does have some warts. Next up, so I haven't played this yet, but I'm going to talk about it because I think this is kind of a useful tip for people. So the game itself is Mr. Nuts on the Game Boy Color. And this, believe it or not, yes, is a game that I was looking to pick up. This is very much from the mascot era of platformers. I grew up with a Game Boy Color. I grew up playing platformers, so these are the types of games that I really enjoy. And I am looking forward to playing it. If you look at the screenshots on the back here, it actually looks like it has the potential to be pretty cool. But what I wanted to mention with this game is that you can get games that you're looking for without having to pay full price if you're just patient. So this game goes for $30, $40 or so, a little more, a little less, depending on how lucky you get. But what I did is I found a listing for just the box and manual that sold for $5 or $6. And the card itself doesn't really sell for much more than that either. It's like maybe an $8 to $10 game. And so because I didn't just buy a copy right away that was complete, but I wanted to get a complete copy and I waited for one of those box-only listings to show up on eBay, I was able to pick this up for like less than half of what it typically goes for. So you can't always find deals that way. It is a little hard to piece together stuff after the fact, but keep an eye out. If there's games that you're looking for, keep an eye out for box-only or box and manual-only listings. Or even just out in stores and things like that, because sometimes you can luck out and it's cheaper to buy each piece individually and put it all together rather than just buy a complete copy outright. And yeah, I will let you know how this is when I play it, because I'm actually very excited. Real quick one, actually two here that I haven't played. I promise I have played some of these games that are coming up here. But first is Unit 13. This is by Zipper Interactive, and this is a Vita game that I actually didn't own, surprisingly enough. I wanted to get this for a few reasons. One, it's sort of like one of those early PlayStation Vita games that you associate with the console. I think of like this and Army Corps of Hell, those types of games. And I never had it, even though I own, I think, about 2/3 of the Vita library at this point. And so it always felt like a weird little hole that I was happy to finally patch up. And also because it is by Zipper Interactive, that's the studio that developed the SOCOM games on PlayStation 2. I have some friends that are really into SOCOM. And so I feel bad that I haven't really put much time into the series. I know multiplayer is sort of the focus, and that's not really something you can do here anymore. But I figured that I kind of owed it to them to check the game out. And it gave me a little bit of confidence that this would be a pretty decent game when I finally did get around to it. It looks like a third-person shooter. The other game here is Tales of Versus. This is an import PlayStation portable title, and this is an interesting one. It's sort of a Smash Bros style game for the Tales series. So you play as different protagonists and different characters from all the different Tales games and fight in like Tales combat style, but it's like a mashup game. It's everyone, it's a bunch of the different universes colliding. So I don't know how far I'll really be able to get into this one without being able to speak Japanese, but I came across it at a half-price books, and it was like, I want to say it was single digits, like $8 or $9. I don't fully remember, but it was very cheap. And since I own most of the other Tales games and I like these characters a lot, I thought, yeah, why not? I'll check that out. So Tales of Versus should be fun. And then we have a couple of import PlayStation 1 shoot-'em-ups. I'm a big fan of really any shoot-'em-up that I can get my hands on. And lately I've been really looking into the PlayStation 1 library. There's a lot of great import PlayStation 1 games that never came out over here that are either good or interesting for one reason or another. And so I've been looking into what games I can import for that console, sort of building up that library. Maybe I'll do a collection video on my import PS1 at some point here in the near future. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in, because there are some games that I think would be fun to share. But I picked up two different shoot-'em-ups. The first one is Tu Tenkaku. To be honest, there's not too much to say about this. If you're well versed in shoot-'em-ups, this isn't doing anything like really crazy or really unique. It is pretty standard fare. It honestly looks like, outside of a couple of scenes in some of the FMV cutscenes, that it could have been on the Super Nintendo or a system prior to the PS1. It's not pushing the hardware limits or anything like that. But, I mean, it is a pretty fun game. It's got some cool music in some of the stages. And, yeah, it's relatively cheap as far as import shoot-'em-ups go. Some of these games can get relatively pricey. And so if you're looking for an affordable one that you maybe haven't heard of and want to check out, try Tu Tenkaku. And the other one here is much better. A really fantastic shoot-'em-up. And that is, I think it's pronounced Kyuin or Quyin. It's Kyuin. And this is a really good shoot-'em-up. It's, I guess, more of a cute-'em-up if you prefer that term. But you play as this young kid on a vacuum, and as you are scrolling through the levels, it's horizontal scrolling shoot-'em-up. As you're scrolling through the levels, the front of that vacuum is also constantly sucking in, and so you can either dodge enemies, dodge projectiles, or you can suck them into the vacuum. And as you absorb and suck in enemies and bullets and things like that, you build up a meter that ultimately serves as sort of your bomb or your screen clearing shot, and it does a bunch of damage to all the enemies on screen, and also does a bunch of damage to bosses and things like that. So outside of that, the game is really charming, a lot of really big, beautiful sprites for bosses and things like that, and just like an absolute charming, delightful game. Very cool. Not super easy to come by, but a very, very good shoot 'em up. And finally, I have more 3DS games. Oh, whoops. I mentioned in my previous pickup video, but for anyone that did not see it, GameStop over the last couple weeks, it's ended now, but at the end of February, beginning of March, was doing a buy two, get two sale on any last gen console, basically. So Vita, 3DS, and then PlayStation 3, 360, Wii U. Basically just trying to clear out some stock that they had. And I decided that this was a good opportunity to finally pick up a lot of the 3DS and Vita games that I hadn't picked up. Turns out I wasn't able to find much for the Vita because I either already had the stuff that was available or their Vita selections were really low. I mean, some GameStops only had one Vita game and they had to pull it out of a drawer. It wasn't even out on the floor. But 3DS I did pretty good on. So again, I haven't played a decent chunk of these, but that's only because this was specifically designed to be me stocking up on the 3DS games I'm going to want in the future. Once GameStop finally decides to clearance out 3DS stuff and they're not carrying it anymore, it's going to be a lot harder to track it down. So I figured, hey, let's buy it now. I'll have it available and I can pull them out and play them as I desire. So I have at this point gotten a lot of what I want for the 3DS. There are still a handful of games that I do want. So I'm not fully done collecting for this system yet, but this does put a nice dent again into my wish list for it. So we have... and you'll notice that this mathematically adds up to 2 sets of the buy two, get two, with one exception that I'll cover at the very end. But in terms of the games, we have Yoshi and Poochie's Woolly World. I really like these Yoshi platformers, and I don't know exactly what has changed in this one. I think it just has some additional Poochie levels and things like that, but very fun game on the Wii U, and so I'm looking forward to playing that version. A game that most people probably aren't too excited to see, which is Metroid Prime Federation Force. I'm not actually super opposed to playing this. In fact, I think it could be kind of fun to work with some of your friends and play through this. So I might try to convince a couple of my local friends to check this out, pick it up, and play through it. I think that would be a really good time. We have Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions, an absolutely excellent set of turn-based role-playing games in this series, and this first one, Superstar Saga, is probably the best of them. Although Dream Team, or whatever the second one was also very good. Dream Team is also very good. But yeah, if you look through, this has kind of a new art style. It's sort of a little more 3D modeled, and then it has some additional levels and stuff. So when I'm in the mood to replay this game, this will be a nice version to have. Tomodachi Life. This is a weird game that's about basically just being social and doing weird stuff with Miis. Very hard to describe, but very charming. You just sort of a Animal Crossing, but really weird and quirky, and using your Miis, I guess. Might not be the best way to describe it, but it's kind of close. Very interesting game that I'm looking forward to trying out. Yoshi's New Island. Yoshi's Island on the Super Nintendo is one of my absolute favorite platforming games, and so I am very much looking forward to checking this out. I think it looks really good. I've heard somewhat mixed things, but everything I've seen, it seems like it'll be a game I enjoy. Kirby Battle Royale. I don't honestly know really anything about this. Looks to be maybe a bit like a minigame collection or something like that. This isn't one that I was even really looking out for or really had much knowledge on at all, but it worked out to one of the buy two, get twos, and so I decided to pick that one up. And then the last two from the buy two, get two here are Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Gates to Infinity. 2 more of these Pokemon Dungeon games, which I have played through Red Rescue Team before, and I actually really enjoyed that game. And so I am looking forward to trying these out. I like roguelike games, and these Pokemon ones tend to be pretty good, and they actually a lot of times have decent stories, so those should be fun. And then one last game, which is kind of an interesting one. It is another 3DS game, and technically it did come from the buy two, get twos. The other games that I picked up, I wasn't really sure about, and I decided not to keep. There was like a Green Lantern game, and I think a Lego game or something. But these were all $5 or less, and I decided to throw one more buy two, get two together just on a long shot. I figured, hey, I'll pick up some of these games that look like they're not for me, or they look kind of kiddie, or they just don't look like super well produced, and I'll give them a shot, because you never know what you're going to find, right? That games like that Green Lantern game could turn out to be a pretty decent underknown platformer. So it wasn't. The Green Lantern game's not very good. But one game that I picked up in that last cheap lot of 3DS games was Jaws Ultimate Predator. And actually, if you've ever played the PlayStation 2 Jaws game, these are really fun. Or at least the PlayStation 2 one is really fun. I mean, if you want to just live out the fantasy of playing as a shark and ripping apart people, these are the games for you. And I thought in 3D, that might be like really cool. I'm a big fan of the 3D and the 3DS. I leave my 3D slider turned on. And so I popped this in and started playing it to see, hey, is this good? Is this something I actually want in my collection? And it was kind of right there straddling the line the whole time. Sometimes it was kind of frustrating. Most of the time I was having fun. But I just kind of kept playing it for some reason. And before you knew it, I had finished this game. I mean, it's not super long. It's probably 3 to 4 hours long. But I played all the way through it, sort of just trying to get a feel for whether or not I wanted to keep it. And I think that that's probably a compliment enough to say, yeah, I do want to hang on to it. So the 3D is pretty good. The playing as the shark is fun. Not quite as fun as the PS2 version, but it is good. And really, it's just, if you like 3D and if you like that PlayStation 2 game, either of those things, this is probably worth picking up for the price it is right now. I mean, it's like $5. So yeah, check it out. It was kind of fun. I enjoyed it, Jaws Ultimate Predator. And those are all of my pickups for the day. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you've been picking up. Or if you've played any of the games that I mentioned here, especially some of those 3DS games that I haven't quite gotten around to yet. I'd love to know if there's any of those that you'd prioritize or think that are like really worth my time. But other than that, yeah, feel free to hang around the channel if you like what you saw. I'll be putting out more videos again soon. Subscribe. But just in general, comment, let me know what you've been playing. Start a discussion. That's the most fun part about this. So until next time, have a great rest of your day. Bye.